city of Denver, the state of Colorado, you guys have been fucking amazing for the last 10 years.
Let me start off with a Twitch feed this morning, and I got to get the whole name right. Mile High Hockey
The city of Denver, the state of Colorado.
Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab.
Ado, you're muted.
Hello and welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. Look at that. Funny how those buttons and things work like that. But thank you for calling me out there, Ezra. Welcome to the Mile High Hockey Lab. I'm here with Ezra Parter, who you heard first, calling me out, telling me to get my head out of my you-know-what, and Jackie, and there's Mr. Managing Editor, Evan Liu. We are here today to talk Colorado Avalanche hockey. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this program, please like, subscribe, follow, all that stuff, and share with your fellow Avalanche and hockey fans. That does us a huge solid. So we got a huge, not a huge show, but some stuff to talk about heading into the All-Star game. We're going to recap kind of the last two games between our last episode and now. We'll talk, and this was Ezra's idea, which I loved after last week's show. He said, hey, let's talk about some trade targets that are off the board, some stuff, some people that maybe the talking heads around the league and nerds like me who do cap friendly trades all the time haven't really talked about. So we'll get there, and then of course we'll do our breakaway challenge, and we will let the winner bring a segment and do our bold predictions. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about those two games that have happened since we last talked score, and I think Jake did this last time, but that was both victories over the Kings and the Capitals. And Evan, I'll go to you first as usual. Is that what the Avalanche look like when they're firing on all cylinders?
Hold on. There we go. I'm a mess over here if you can't figure it out. I join in late and I'm, my goodness. To answer your question, though, yes, that is absolutely what the Avalanche look like when they are firing on all cylinders, that Capitals game. If my memory doesn't hurt me, I remember the first like 10 minutes or so, it took the Avs a little bit to kind of find their feet. I think they only had a couple of shots on net.
I think it was one.
One shot on net, exactly. And then next thing you know, boom, right? And that's what this team can do. And we know what they are certainly capable of. And while the Capitals are not the Capitals that they used to be anymore, it is still good to see the team come out and perform to a high level, to a high standard, and ultimately play to a really high ability in not only the Caps game, but also that Kings game in the last two games before, a deserved break for the team.
Yeah, and my thing with that, with both performances for the Avalanche is, we got to see kind of shades of things that they can bring to the table on a nightly basis, but like we also got a combination of things that we don't typically see in one game. Like we got really good goaltending and we got some solid performance from depth. We got decent goaltending and we got an unreal performance from our top line. So those two games really. That's it was a loaded question. I know you knew what I wanted you to answer that first one, which was yes, absolutely. But I'll send this one over to you, Ezra. Georgiev, as I mentioned, he kind of seems like he's turning the page a little bit on his struggles right as we head into All-Star weekend. It was reported that he and his significant other had plans to go to the beach, but instead they're going to Toronto for the All-Star game. Do you think his All-Star status hurts or helps his mindset? And does it take away from maybe some rest that he might have gotten?
Well, I think it helps his mindset. Getting that honor is definitely something that's validating for a player. So for a guy who's been a little shaky, I can only imagine that the league seeing him as an all-star is something where he's like, oh yeah, no, I do know what I'm doing back here. I can settle in and just play my game. So hopefully the rest aspect isn't something that he really needed, because he isn't going to get the rest this weekend. He isn't going to get to go to the beach with his significant other, which would have been fun, I'm sure. But the Toronto experience can be restful too, because it's not practice, it's not a real game. It's definitely work, and it's definitely something that he has to do that maybe he doesn't want to do, but also maybe he really does want to do it. You never know. I feel like some players can get really energized by this kind of thing, and some players it's they've been there, they've done that, they're not as interested, and they'd really rather be at home. But he's a guy who's never done it before, so hopefully it's energizing for him.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I think like going from a backup in New York to the starter last year in Colorado and now an all-star, I think that's a natural arc and something that he can appreciate because of the naturalness and the positivity of that arc. Jackie, what are your thoughts on Gorgiev in the all-star game? And what do you think of the all-star jerseys?
Well, I think he'll have probably a good 4 or 5 days at the beach anyway. So,
Yeah.
I don't know
good.
if their report day is Wednesday or Thursday, but it's something. And
Okay.
then if you go to the All-Star game, you don't have to. Usually the guys get the day of practice on the Sunday off. So I might be able to sneak a little bit or more rest in there. As far as the jerseys, I don't know. Probably not my favorite. I'm not someone that believes jerseys need to look like they're from the 1950s to be acceptable. So I'm open to a little, I don't know, interesting contemporary ideas, but I probably wouldn't buy this one. I have like some of the ones in the past though,
Yeah.
so kind of is what it is.
Yeah, I got the Vegas one, and I will say that like it just feels like they overcorrected like crazy, because the Vegas one they were like, that's just so simple. It looks like a NHL 23 created jersey that you just threw blue and colors on. And then this year they're like, all right, we'll watch this.
Simple is easier, people. Come on. I couldn't believe that those jerseys were real. Just on a side note, like they're so bad. They're so
I
bad.
could see kids loving them though. Like,
Yeah.
and the All-Star game really isn't for veteran hockey fans like us.
That's true.
Kids could be into that. Yeah, colors are fun.
Yeah, colors are fun. I will say
But-
the white one doesn't look too bad, just because it's white gold. And I think the same about kind of the red one, but the blue one and the yellow one,
the yellow one's
the yellow one
horrid.
is,
and of course that's the one that the Central Division is too.
Yeah.
So
yellow's a tough color.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the color in general, but like for a hockey jersey, it just hasn't worked. Like the Bruins one was bad, the Predators one was mustard. I don't know why they keep
Yellow's
trying.
tough.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of yellow to begin with, so I will not be buying yellow jersey.
It looks like a goalie, like in soccer, a goalie's kit. That's what the yellow one looks like.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
I like the ones a couple years ago that were gray. I think they were all like different shades of gray, and it was the one where I was really hoping Makar would make it because I was gonna buy that jersey, but he didn't. So I don't know if that was 2 or 3 years ago, but I thought that
one was
decent.
cool, and they had like the grain on the numbers, the gray, darker gray shaded grain on the numbers. I like those ones too. I got, like I said, I got my hands on a Vegas one, McKinnon Vegas, and it's the wrong color because he didn't play. So they made him before he was injured, and so they made him in the blue version, but the whole weekend he wore like the away version of the All-Star jersey. So it's kind of a weird one, but nonetheless, talking about Nathan McKinnon at All-Star weekend, the way the 3v3 tournament is set up this year, they're doing a draft, and there are 4 captains, McKinnon being one of them. If you're Nathan McKinnon, looking at this pool of all-stars, Evan, we'll go with you first, and then I'll let all of you guys kind of tag in on this one. Who's your first pick?
If it's not Kale, then who is it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the easy
I think he's
answer.
already his assistant captain, so I don't think like he's
true.
in the
Okay.
pool. Yeah.
That's right. Oh God.
So say let's do a hypothetical and say he's either already on your roster or he's already been taken. Who's your first overall pick?
Oh goodness. I'm trying to think of even any other all-stars on any other teams, if I'm being quite honest.
I know. Who's not a captain? I haven't been paying attention.
I'll go with this guy. I will go with I believe Elias Pettersson, right? Is he an all-star this year still?
I think so, yeah.
I don't think he's a captain because I think that goes to McDavid with the Pacific. But
yeah, so it's
that'd
Team
be kind of fun.
Team Matthews, who is apparently Austin Matthews and Justin Bieber are the captains. Team McDavid, where Connor McDavid, obviously, and Will Arnett. Nathan McKinnon is tandemed with Tate McRae. And Jack and Quinn Hughes together are their team Hughes with Michael Bublé being their co-captain. I like that last one. But yeah, that's a good question. Let's look at who else is in it. Evan or Ezra, what do you think? You have any answers to that?
He should take Crosby.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, that would be cool.
The old boys playing together.
Jackie, what do you think?
Kucherov.
Yeah,
enemy's
there you
closer.
go. That's good. And I'm going to go the exact opposite direction, and I'm going to say Georgiev. Do your goalie a solid.
Sure.
And it's like that doesn't make any sense at all. So you really love your goalie if you take him first overall in a 3v3 tournament. Although, does it make a lot of sense? If we're talking competitiveness, do you not want the best goalie in a 3v3?
As long as you don't end up with Cam Talbot, I think you're okay.
I don't think you can pick a goalie first. Like I get
Yeah.
the teammate thing. I don't know if he'll feel pressure to do that, but I want to say something about the Pedersen pick. That was gonna kind of be my if Kucherov and Crosby already said.
Okay.
Because you're keeping him away from Hughes. Like assuming you can pick him before Hughes does, keeping him away from Team Hughes, and I think he's done pretty well at the All-Star games before, and so I think he's won a few of the skills competitions, and I know this is for the game, but I think he could be a sneaky good pick. So
All right.
I like that one.
All right. We don't know the teams yet, so it's so hard to like take a favorite on that tournament. But in the skills competition, last thing about the All-Star game before we get into our off-the-board trade targets, we talked about head-to-head Makar and McKinnon last week, but is there anyone in particular with a specific skill that you all can think of that you're looking forward to? The hardest shot is usually a fun one, yeah?
That was going to be my answer. It was the hardest shot. I think that's, I don't know. I am a sucker for speed. For those of you who don't know, I'm a big NASCAR guy. So NASCAR is right around the corner. There's like a new Netflix documentary that came out. Highly recommend it. I just watched the first 2 episodes before this. That's totally not why I was late to this. But no, I'm really excited to see just kind of the insane power that can come just off of not even that thick of a wooden stick, right? And just the flex and the bend of it all. And I know that the Ottawa Senators, I think, just had like their alumni game or skills competition, whatever. And I think Chychrun hit like 107 or something, and that was ridiculous. Like it's just insane to me.
Even crazier than that, though, if you think about it, is Chara has the record of a clocked shot in game too, and it was 108 miles an hour in a game.
Good Lord, yeah, like it's unbelievable. It really is, and that's the one that'll, I think, blow me away when I watch the competition.
No well, like you said, you got the need for speed, and like last year, Jackie, your guy Pedersen, 103.2 miles an hour in the hardest shot competition. So,
which you wouldn't expect. You'd think like all the defensemen, and like he has a thin frame, like he's still kind of a wiry guy. And he just cranks it. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think it's length, and I wonder how with that said, I wonder how Rantanen would do in a hardest shot competition, because we've seen him blast.
True, we just have a nice one-timer.
Yeah, we've seen him blast a few. Okay, so let's get to our off-the-board trade targets. As previously mentioned, Ezra, this was your idea, and I love it. And folks, if you enjoy what you're watching or listening to, please head on over to our YouTube account and follow us over there. We post all of our stuff live as soon as it's the first thing out is the live broadcast. So go ahead over there. So we're going to talk off the board trade targets. And I think, Ezra, your disclaimer was something like along the lines of an Arturi Lehkonen deal. So let's just get into it. Ezra, do you want to start?
Sure, I will.
Let's go.
So when I said like along the lines of an Arturi Lehkonen deal, what the hallmark of that deal was in my mind was it's a player who has a lot to prove because he's a restricted free agent, so he's playing for probably his like prime years contract, which is a big contract for everybody. It's a player who is excellent defensively for Lehkonen, but specifically not who I'm gonna pitch, but who has excellent metrics, underlying statistics that really jump off the board that show you, hey, this player in the situation he's in is doing well, and put in a situation where he's maybe has less expectation or a different opportunity to be a part of a team where he doesn't have to be one of the leaders, one of the elite players. He could be an asset down the lineup, and somebody who seems like a cultural fit. So with all that in mind, I was thinking specifically about centers, and I was looking around the league at the teams who might be willing to trade a center for somebody who fits that profile. And there's really only one, and he's kind of controversial. It's Casey Middlestat. That's my pitch. Casey Middlestat from the Buffalo Sabres. There's a couple. There's like it's possible that Buffalo has absolutely no interest in trading him, but the reason they might is they have Tage Thompson locked in at number 1. Dylan Cousins locked in at number 2 for their centers, and Middlestat is playing as a 3C. He's capable of more, I think, and he's shown that this year when Thompson was out and he was playing in the top 6. But they also have Peyton Krebs, who showed, again, while Thompson was out, that he can be a 3C. So they're going to have to pay both Krebs and Middlestat this offseason. Probably they're not going to be able to afford. I mean, they have cap space, so they could afford both, but they really need to shore up their defense. So it's possible that moving on from one of these two guys to bring in a left-handed defenseman to play alongside Owen Power or righty, whatever they can make either side fit, would be something that the Sabres are interested in. And ultimately, Krebs is going to cost less than Middlestat. So there's a possibility he's available for the right deal, and I think he'd be a wonderful target.
That is so awesome that you went with him, because my off the board trade target is Krebs. And actually, I'm going to combine it because we don't have a goalie and the second goalie under contract next season with Eric Comrie. So I feel like there might be something there, and it's for the same reasons that you just said in terms of Krebs, which is that they seem like they have centers, but they haven't found their role correctly. Like you mentioned, Middlestat's damn near a point per game player. So he's probably somebody you either want to elevate or get rid of so that you can elevate Krebs, who, although his production isn't quite there yet, we have seen him, play pretty well for the Sabres his first year there in a short time span of 48 games where he had 22 points. So there's potential. He's 2 years younger. And then you also, you get and take care of the situation at goalie. I'm trying to pull up some Comrie stats just so I can double down. He's only played 7 games this season. I'm pretty sure they're all lost. Oh no, he has 1 win. Excuse me. The numbers are not good, but he's the type of goalie that Buffalo typically produces, which is like somebody who can do enough. And I think that's kind of all we really need from a backup this time around. So those are my off the board targets. We have 2 Sabres targets right now. Evan, what do you got?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, I was doing research on this earlier this morning because I forgot about it. But I don't know. I have 2 options. I'm leaning more towards one than another. And I did not go down the Buffalo Sabres route. I was thinking about teams who are obviously struggling at the moment, kind of needing like an identity, and maybe looking to maybe offset some players this year. And I was mostly looking at like UFAs, RFAs, all of that. And my eyes caught Jack Roslovich of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now I know that's not very flashy at all by any sorts of the imagination, not flashy at all. One, this is what Chris McFarland and Joe Sakic do. They go for the not flashy players. Yeah. And 2, he's not going to be like a 2C. What I'm thinking more of is that this then allows the Roaring 20s line to be the Roaring 20s line, specifically be the second line of the team. Keep them together, and then Roslovich can go in that bottom 6. Now, that would probably mean moving Johansson, maybe. I think that would be the most kind of ideal scenario if you're the Avs. And of course, the Blue Jackets are struggling and continue to do so. Ryan Johansson would at least provide a little bit of veteranship to the team and at least some identity support, I guess, but not much else besides that. And I think Columbus is fine with that. Now, Roslovich, I believe, is a UFA. Yeah, UFA at the end of the year. The only problem that I have with him is that he does have a $4 million cap hit. So Columbus would need to eat some of that salary, which is already going to be tough since the Avs are splitting it with Nashville with Ryan Johansson's contract, and probably have to do the same if he goes to Columbus, so on and so forth. So that's really my only concern with that. And like I said, definitely not the flashiest name out there in the world, but he's one of two options that I have on my phone right now, and I'll just go with him for the time being.
I'm
Well-
curious what the other one is, or are we saving that for later?
I mean, I can share it if you wanted to, or
Go ahead, yeah.
it again, not very fashy. That sounds bad.
Or
Sorry.
fashy. English is hard.
English is
English
hard.
is hard.
Luke Cunnin, again, not very flashy. For again, kind of the same reasons that of Roslovic, of it allows the Roaring 20s line to stay as a second line. And again, San Jose just terrible. And the difference between Roslovic and Cunnin is that Cunnin's an RFA, at least at the end of the year, and he has a lower cap hit, $2.75 million. But I think the one kind of trade-off that I have with the two of them that I was just comparing is that English Evan Roslovic has only played in 26 there you go. He's only played in 26 games this year. He does have 10 points though, but he's been dealing with a ton of injuries. I just looked up, he had a fractured ankle, kept him out for a good little while. So he's not played much. Versus Luke Cunnin has played for a good majority of the season, 44 games, 6 goals and 2 assists.
Yeah.
Now, obviously that's San Jose, so you kind of have to put an asterisk next to that. But I would like to go with a guy who has a better scoring ratio ish, and Roslovic would do that. But that comes with a higher price. So it's the trade-offs, you know.
Yeah, well, and Scott Wilson, who I'm not going to lie to, Scott and I had a conversation on Twitter, and that's where I stole the Krebs off the board trade target from, was Mr. Scott. I'll show you that real quick. He even put it in breakdown right here for us. And actually, that's pretty awesome that he followed me into the program to make sure that I stole his stuff and did it right. But let's look at this. Back to the Roslovic stuff, which he brought up, is that he's the fastest forward with the most 22-mile-per-hour bursts. That sounds like it would work in Colorado, as unsexy as you say that is. Look at Miles Wood. Probably had a lot to do with the speed that he brings to the table and how he fits the system. So I don't hate it. Jackie, talk a little bit about who we've talked about, and then tell us who your off the board target is.
Okay, well, remember what I've said previously, the deadline is about reputation. And so my pick, which I'll save, is not an RFA. I know that was the task here, but it's unlikely that RFAs are deadline moves. I know Lehkonen was, but if you look at the others that the Avs have done with Taze and Burakovsky and Colton, they're all off-season moves because teams don't have to move RFAs at the deadline. So as far as those that have been suggested, Middlestat, I just don't see he's available. I finally found the source was that Kevin Weeks mentioned it. Like, I just thought everyone was losing their minds talking about him, but okay, somebody at least mention him. But like, he's better than Cousins. Like, he finally had the breakout, started last year. He was playing 1C for a while. He's the team's leading scorer. And I think the argument is, well, why haven't they locked him up? Well, it's because he hasn't broken out yet.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine they're not going to lock him up. And I don't see him as a guy that the Avs are going to bring in and then give him a big role. I don't know. I haven't loved his game. I'm happy for him that he's finally cashing in on some of that potential. And he's going to cost a pretty penny. The fact that, as you all mentioned, he's a point per game. He finally broke out. Like, how much are in? I think he's nearing the end of his RFA. Probably has like 2 years left. He's going to cost a pretty penny to keep. We're talking 6-7 million, maybe more.
Yeah.
So I think he's staying in Buffalo. I don't. Maybe they're trying to dangle him out there to see if anybody's going to go nuts. But I don't. I just think he's going to stay. Krebs, I just don't think he's that good. He has 9 points. Last time I looked, he has 9 points.
Yeah, that's correct.
Like, Bednar's not giving him a role. He's a fourth liner on this team.
Yeah.
He's already on his fresh start. He started in Vegas, Buffalo. I don't see much there. Like, I don't see much upside. If you can get him for like a fifth or something, sure, give it a go. But like, it's not going to change anything. You might as well just use somebody that's already in your system. The Roslovic's interesting. I just think if you like him, get him in the off season when you could probably sign him for $1 million. You don't need to trade for him at the deadline.
He doesn't help you win the cup this year, then, though.
He isn't on your team either. Like, he's
Right.
not helping you win the cup if you get him. Like he's also a guy that's already had his fresh start. He's disappointed now. Like he's another guy that's probably like a year and a half away from Europe. Like he's on the way out. I do like the point about his speed. That's like they would like that, but like I said, he's more of a guy you bring in the off season, throw him $1 million and maybe see if something's still there, but he's not a deadline ad.
So who's yours?
Okay,
Yeah.
my
Make this
my
fun.
pick.
Make this fun.
Yes. Is Riley Smith from the Pittsburgh
Nice.
Penguins.
I don't hate that.
Yeah.
What he has, reputation, won the cup, big role with Vegas. He's produced. He's been a first line, second line. I know he's not a center, but he's good analytics, defensively responsible, all that jazz. You know, that if they bring him in, the Avs can shuffle things around. You know, I'm not obsessed with the center thing. I think every center in this league the stone has been turned over. There's nothing to explore there. Okay, so he makes $5 million the rest of this year and next year. I know that's too much for the Avs. They probably are going to have to retain. I know that's asking a lot, but if Pittsburgh's going to retool.
Yeah, you can send something too, like to help alleviate that. You know what I mean?
And here's the thing: they got him for a third. So if you start there and build around that, Here's what I would do: I would throw Barons and a third to Pittsburgh. So Dubas gets his third back that he paid for him, and he's going to want to build up that prospect pool. And so Barons, I think, would be attractive enough to say, okay, you're going to retain this year and next year. Then the Avs will have Riley Smith for $2.5 million next year, and takes care of needing to improve their depth in the future. Now, is this fully realistic? It is asking a little bit much, so I'm going to say, but we wanted to hear bigger ideas. Like, I could have said James Reimer for our backup. Nobody would have been excited about that.
Well, I think it's so funny. I put trades out on Twitter all the time, like on Cap Friendly, and everyone's like, no way Carolina agrees to this. And it's like, but isn't the reputation for trades in the Colorado Avalanche that they fleece everyone they trade with? So it's like, obviously I'm not saying that that's the rule, but you can't be this person who's like, the Avalanche win every trade and then simultaneously poo-poo every trade offer because it doesn't feel all the way realistic. It's not real until it is. I don't think anybody saw the Arturi Lehkonen trade coming. I guarantee you no one saw the Devon Taves trade coming, but look at how that lopsided that trade was. Sometimes the situation just calls for that. So I'm with you, Jackie. I actually like that a lot because I love the pedigree that you're bringing into the room as well. Like you mentioned, he has playoff experience, like good playoff experience. And I don't see, he's got a modified no trade clause. I think any team probably competing. I don't know that he doesn't like the Avalanche, so I don't see why anyone who's looking to win a cup wouldn't look at the Avalanche and say, yeah, I'll go there if I'm going to be traded.
I think it's a 10-team no. So, right. Yeah. Could you imagine Colorado would be on the no? Probably not.
I doubt it. But even then, Vegas would not let him forget it if he joined the Avs, I feel like. I don't feel like the Vegas fans would let him forget.
Well, then we're destined for that Western Conference final.
Ring of Honor guy in Vegas to the most hated. But, I mean, I think he's an attractive player in that he'd be a good fit in a lot of ways. But he also... the wing is crowded right now. I don't know. I don't know that he makes sense to me in that sense because they're just.
Bednar would probably play him at center.
I was gonna say Rantanen play center. Like Rantanen's been a center before too.
Yeah, but Rantanen coming off McKinnon's wing doesn't seem like it's happening. I don't know. I'm like, I'm like the only trade target that makes sense to me is a center because I'm assuming that Nichushkin comes back at some point this year. It's possible that he doesn't, and then in that case, if they know that that's going to come, if they're suspecting that he's out for a long time, then maybe there is a wing trade. But you got Lehkonen, you got Nichushkin, you just need to put somebody in between them. That's the thing. And it could be Landeskog even, but you don't want a guy coming off knee surgery being tasked with center work instead of wing work when he's, I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. That's a big question mark to put in the middle. I just think as good as Riley Smith is, and you're right, Jackie, he'd be a great fit on this team. I don't know how he's a good fit in the lineup.
Interesting. That's a good point. I mean, I kind of agree with Jackie that I think they find a way to sort it out, but when you break it down that way, it does feel like they need a true center, especially because I don't know. I'm working on confidence in Ross Colton because I think this season, I think Ross Colton is the Colorado Avalanche 2C. And I go back to what you said on last week's program, Jackie, which is that if the Avalanche really wanted their bona fide 2C, they should have freaking re-signed Nazem Kadri. But that ship has sailed. And so I think that you're going to have to look at the roster and try and elevate guys and then add your depth further down the lineup so that you still have a deep roster up the middle, but it's just not structured the way it was when we won the cup. But I think, Jacob last week rattled off some serious names in terms of who Ross Colton is outdoing in terms of goals above expected average. So I'm working on this off the board trade market stuff with the idea that the second line is kind of settled.
The second line
Here's
is
the
LSU
thing with
line.
Colton.
Yeah, exactly.
Is he wasn't even a center before this year.
I know,
like they made him a center, and
Yeah.
now they're making him a second line center.
Yeah.
Like if you're starting with good bones, I guess you could say, if you have somebody that has some characteristics, like Freddie Olofsson wasn't even a center. They make centers out of whoever they want. I'm just not bringing in an inferior player just because he has C next to his name.
That's a good
right, but it's also it's a position like if we saw Nichushkin try to play center, Nichushkin's an excellent player, but I don't think he would fit as a center because his whole the strength of his game is predicated on being on the outside.
You can't just ask him of anybody.
I could see Lehkonen filling in at center at some point and making that work. I could see him doing that, but
I could see Lehkonen being like a third and fourth line center when he's like old.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I like a line that is Lehkonen taking the draws and Nichushkin driving the play. They're both kind of doing center work in a way. And I could see that working with somebody on the wing like Riley Smith. But ultimately, if you're shoring up this team, it's finding a center for those guys because Colton, he can play 2C minutes, but the way he's playing with Wood and LOC, I don't know how you break that up.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. And it's just, we'll see. I'm actually more optimistic this season than I feel like I ever was last season about this Colorado Avalanche team in there. And the more last season, especially the regular season wore on, the less confident I was that the Avalanche were going to do well. And the opposite is true this season for me.
It's interesting. I feel like the center conversation was the big thing last year too, but the center conversation last year was we're like, okay, we've got JT and he's really capable of playing between these two positions, but we need somebody else. And this year it's like, okay, we've got Colton who is capable of playing between these two positions. And then we got Ryjo who can't do anything. It's the same conversation, but it's with a guy who we're like, his upside is higher, Colton, than Comper.
Agreed.
And then a guy who we're like, what happened with Ryjo? But we know what happened. He's not a stylistic fit. But
he's slow.
He's slow. Exactly.
Yeah. So Scott Wilson with another good one here. He says, does everyone on the panel agree that this year is a go all in on the cup run? Why wait until next year? So let's use that great question as a segue into our next segment, which is the breakaway challenge. And you all know how this goes, but I'll rattle it off real quick so the listeners are reminded. We do a topic of conversation. Each panel member gets 1 minute to pitch as many points in their favor as they can. Whoever ends up with the most points at the very end gets to pick the next segment. So first things first, I'm going to play the fancy little music that I made for all this because, why wouldn't you do it if you made it? And then maybe I'm not gonna. So let's pretend we did, and we will not. So let's move on. Where do you prefer the Avalanche source their tradable assets at the deadline? You guys can choose a combination of these choices or one or all three. The choices are draft picks, prospect pool, or roster players. So let's go, Jackie. I'll start with you.
Oh, you're trying to make this difficult for me. Okay.
Hold on a sec. Let me get my clock out real fast so that I can count you down because I don't. Last week you were rolling, so I'm going to be sure to stop you this time since you're going first. Okay, ready and go.
Okay, I don't believe in all in because or what are they going to rebuild next year? No, they're still going to try to win the cup next year. There's no such thing as all in. You're trying to build a team that can be as good for as long as possible. So, with that said, they don't have much to trade in draft picks. I mean, they can use this year's fourth, the fifth they got for Tatar. They can maybe use next year's third. That's about it that they have to use for draft picks. They do not spend firsts on rentals at the deadline, and so they are likely going to keep that first round pick and try to have some semblance of a prospect pool. So, roster players, they don't trade off the roster. If they're helping this team, they're not going to go. But I do think that Curtis McDermott, I've mentioned a lot, he makes the most sense to go. They're going to need the contract space. They're already at 47 contracts. They're going to need the $1 million from his salary, and they should be able to move him to somebody in a deal. So what else do they have? I think Ben Myers is likely to go. There's a reason why they're not using up his waiver exemption.
Okay, that's a minute. I'm gonna stop you there.
Okay.
Oh man, if I don't stop you, Jackie, you will just roll, and I love that about you. I love that. I gave you 5 points there.
Okay, all right, that's fair.
That's pretty respectable. That seems to be like 4, 5, and 6 is like the running rate. You guys are 4, 5 points a minute, on a nightly basis. So I love what you had to say there, Jackie. Let's go to you, Ezra.
All right. Tell me when to go.
All right. Let me set this thing up again. We're going to reset. Okay. Where are we finding this this trade capital, draft picks, prospects, or from the roster, and go.
All right. Well, I agree with Jackie. It is important to have a long-term view while you're playing for the short-term win. But at the same time, this is a year that you've got to try to capitalize on. You've got to give the guys in the room a boost for playing as well as they have, especially with Nathan MacKinnon. Obviously, he's playing at a high level. He's playing at a Hart Trophy level. You don't let that season go by the wayside. So I think it's important to bring in a guy who you're telling your locker room, hey, we believe in you. We want to add to this. We want to bring in a guy who you want to play with, who's going to make your team better. And I think that's really important. And the way I would do it is draft picks and a little bit of prospect pool. But mostly I'm willing to move a first-round pick this year. I know the Avs typically don't, but for the right deal, maybe they would. And again, with prospects like a Guyayev or a Callum Ritchie, you don't want to move those guys. But maybe for the right deal, you do. Because this year is an important year to try to win. Next year is an important year to try to win. In 10 years, or I don't know, 10 years, but like 5 years when the next year's draft picks are coming along, you solve your problems again in 5 years.
Love it. That was pretty good stuff right there, Ezra. So you basically said kind of both the prospect pool and the draft picks. Seems like we're staying away from roster players with the first two contributors so far. So I got you two at a 5-5 tie right now. So Evan, this is all you. If you can take it, if you can score 6 on the breakaway, it's all you. So let's reset the clock.
In before I get 5, just like everybody else.
Yeah. All right. So prospects, draft picks, or roster players for trade assets, and go.
The Avs will go in this year. Not all the way in, but they are still going to compete. When you have guys like Nathan MacKinnon, like I already mentioned, on a madness, you also have Zach Parise coming in, who has not won a cup. I think that's going to be very similar to Andrew Cogliano, Jack Johnson-esque. Also, when you have Nikolai Kovalenko coming in, he's going to bring a different impact to the team. And finally, if Landeskog comes back, that is certainly going to rile up the team come playoff time. And they are going to do that by using the prospect pool, I think, more than anything. They already don't have a ton there. They don't have a ton of draft picks. The assets that they have are very limited kind of altogether. So I would look at a guy like Oscar Olausson. I think he's on the trade. Is on the trade market. I think he could easily be used. I think he could easily fit into an NHL roster right now if you really wanted to. I'd look at Barons even. I'd look at Anunin in particular if you're looking to go goalie for goalie. The Avs they are going to compete absolutely. It's just a matter of what will fit with what they have.
Woo! You got your 6th on the Anunin right there. Way to go, Evan. Congratulations. Yeah. You are the breakaway challenge winner, which means that you get to introduce the next segment. But I want to touch a little bit on what you just said, and I kind of want to open it up to everybody, kind of just so we can react to what we all brought to the table. But Evan, in particular, the Anunin thing. Jackie, you've said before, and I agree with you, that it feels like the ship has already sailed on Anunin as a Colorado Avalanche, but he's a good goaltender, and he's probably going to find a fit is it a good time to get something in exchange for Annunen? Jackie, you go ahead.
Nobody's going to trade for him. His waiver exemption is up next year. Like,
Yeah.
there's no value there. I mean, he might he might get signed if the Avs don't qualify him, which I think they kind of need. Like, why would they? I mean, like, what, bring him back for what? He'll find another job like Adam Werner did for a year with Calgary, like something like that. But he's just not a trade chip. He's just too old. Like, every organization has a goalie like that. They have multiple goalies. They're not like the Avs where they just have one prospect. Like, they're probably have a guy that they think's close. They probably have like a real prospect that's further away. Like, that's why you don't see prospect goalies really get traded. Like, they just get non-qualified and then either get picked up on waivers later, or it's just not something where they're going to find a whole lot of value there.
My thing is, though, is the Avalanche are likely not going to waive Annunen if they don't have choices in net going into the playoffs. We saw him on the playoff roster in 2022, and obviously that was when Kemper went down with his injury, but he was a part of the team in playoffs in terms of practice and everything. So the big picture was he was a part of the team. I agree. I understand what you're saying. I think he has a little more value than the typical waiver exempt for a few reasons. I know you say like a lot of teams have a goalie like him in their system, but I wonder if he fits the criterion for a team who's willing to take the risk of maybe taking him on in exchange for offloading something that they don't want as well.
I mean, I guess there's always like prospect swap, but just like why? Then they have him and they have to waive him next year. Like, and he's played 5 games. Like, all their other goalies have played more. Like, every team has a goalie that's played like 20 or 30 games. Like, they've just done Annunen no favors. Like, when you're at the end of, like, he's already 1 year past the ELC, and because goalies get 1 more extra year of waiver exemption. When you're at that point, when you're 24 years old and you've played 5 games in the NHL, like, there's not much there that other teams are going to value.
But that's also kind of why there might be a team that wants to take a chance on him, because he hasn't had the opportunity to show what he can really do. And he, I think his AHL stats are respectable. He's not blowing anybody away by any means. I don't know. I don't think he has a ton of value either, but there's something more than, say, well, we already used Adam Werner as an example. He came in, showed he was not capable of playing in the NHL every time that he got an opportunity, except for one shutout. And he wasn't great in the AHL, but Annunen's been better in the AHL than him. I'd have to look at the stats to be 100% sure of that, but from what I remember, and I don't know. I don't. There's an opportunity for. Hey, we've got this aging goalie who we don't need. You've got that young goalie who you aren't using. Maybe we swap. That's the only thing I could see him use for. He's certainly not a trade chip to like.
No, he's not. He's not by any means like the guy who's going to get you something. I just wouldn't be surprised if, given the situation, he's a part of a deal that is about getting someone, but also kind of can check some boxes for both sides.
I guess that they look at him as still insurance, though. Like, I know the Avs really wouldn't want to play him in the playoffs, but I mean, if they trade him, then what's like kind of the third degree?
The third guy.
Yeah. That's my thing. Is I think we're all kind of hinting at maybe a goalie trade, and I like what was just said. A veteran who's a clear backup who's looking to just bolster the Avalanche in terms of their 1 and 2 in exchange that some team is done with in exchange for a young guy that we're pretty much done with. I think that can potentially work, but I hear you, Jackie. It's tough. Like, he doesn't have much value given the Avs have waited so long to really give him a chance. I will say that one start is weird to me still. I know that there was a situation with days off and stuff like that, and I still feel like if there was a single scout in the building, Annunen starting was intentional. Whether it be someone was there to see him, or whether it be the Avalanche put him out there because they knew someone was in town and they wanted to kind of force the issue. So that's
interesting. I really don't think Bednar is making decisions in that way, but that maybe, I don't know.
I
don't
think they
think.
just wanted to give one start to a guy that wasn't Prospetov.
Yeah.
If you want to put your cynical hat on, it was to make it look like that he was getting an opportunity before they move on and they trade for James Reimer
Yeah.
as their backup.
Yeah.
That is going to happen.
Well, you are so funny, Jackie. Last week, that's how you were in the other breakaway challenge. You said they're going to trade for an equivalent of, who was it last year that everybody thought was going to be the one that sent us over? Oh, man, number 20? No.
Lars Eller.
Lars Eller, yeah. So
Yeah.
you said, just going to get Lars Eller again.
Yeah, that's Adam Henrique. It's going to happen.
Yeah. Well,
But-
Jack, you're notoriously not a fan of trade deadline day.
No,
so.
I am not. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry I'm the wet blanket, but
you know what? We need one because I'm way too happy and go lucky and optimistic about things all the time. So we need some reality in the room. And you quite often bring that to the table. So let's now, Evan, why don't you give us your topic as the breakaway challenge champion, baby?
I'm glad I won because I'm excited about my topic. And it comes at a good time anyway when there's nothing going on. Zach Parise signing with the Colorado Avalanche. I want to get people's kind of thoughts and opinions on it because I've seen mixed feelings on him, and I don't know. I might be on the lower side of things where less people are, but I'm excited for him. I'm excited for this opportunity with Zach Parise. I'm really looking forward to what he can bring. He's reliable, like Jared Bednar had mentioned even in postgame in LA. He's reliable. He played all 82 games, I think, the last couple of years now. I have to pull up his points total, but I know that he can still put up points and score. Now, I think the only kind of asterisk that I would put on Parise is that he obviously hasn't played in almost a year now.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see kind of how he will do when he first comes out of the gate, out of the All-Star break. He's played with Jack Johnson before, so there's that connection. I know Jack Johnson was super thrilled about having him there. I mean, Parise was handpicked by McKinnon and Landeskog. That was said in the locker room too post game.
Yep.
But yeah, so 21 goals, 13 assists last year for 34 points in 82 games. So hey, that's 33 more points than Curtis McDermott will provide on a night-to-night basis. So there's always that.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of people saying, I'll react to that. I saw a lot of people saying that Parise was brought in because they don't think that Nichushkin will return. First off, I have no insight, but second off, I don't think that that's why they brought in Zach Parise. I will say I too am excited for this signing. One, because wouldn't it be fun to play the Minnesota Wild in the playoffs with Zach Parise on our side?
I didn't even think about that.
And
the
two,
Wild have to make it first.
yeah, I was gonna
That's
say,
true.
love it, Jackie. Yeah, bury him. But number two, I don't think that Landeskog and McKinnon would be helping if they didn't think he's going to. And so I feel like them with ranting and spilling the beans that those two were involved in getting him to Colorado. I'm super excited because it feels like they are. What do you think, Ez?
Yeah, I mean, I love the player. Zach Parise has always played on teams I don't like, and I still love the guy. Like that's how good he is, and how how much I respect the style of play that he brings. I think at this point, as a 39-year-old, he's like slow Andrew Cogliano probably. Like, I don't know, Cogliano's a little old too, but he's going to bring that same level of like intensity, hardworking, defensive-oriented play with a little bit more skill than Cogs has got and a little bit less speed. He just never was as fast as Cogs was at either of their peaks, so he's not going to be as fast as him now. But I don't think we'll have to like nickname him Slogliano or anything. I think he's going to be effective. But
Yeah.
that was all just a long one. So I really think he's going to be a great fit. I don't have high expectations for like points or anything, but I think he's going to be really effective on the third, fourth line. He's not a Nichushkin replacement. He is a Kiviranta replacement, and that's amazing because honestly,
thank goodness.
He needs to be replaced. He's also a McDermott replacement if Kiviranta stays in the lineup. Whatever. Either way, great. But I'm really excited to see what he brings on the ice, and ultimately, like what he brings off the ice is really important too. He's old guy without a cup, which always matters, and he's an excellent like hockey guy, and not just in the term like 200 hockey men old school. That's not what I mean. I mean he's a guy who plays, who brings the same level of dedication as Nathan McKinnon.
Love that.
And there's not a lot of those.
Yeah, I love that. And I like that you are defining hockey guy as that, because that needs to be done nowadays. And if that's true, if you believe that he has like a personality and a work ethic in a similar vein to Nathan McKinnon, then look out, because he's probably never been on a team as talented and as driven as this Colorado Avalanche team that he's about to become a part of. So hopefully that just like kind of riles him up and he revels in the environment and can bring everyone else kind of up a level as well. Jackie, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think Parise is the Thomas Tatar replacement.
Yeah.
So I too believe it has nothing to do with Nichushkin. They were going to need to bring in forwards anyway.
Yep.
So I don't see that correlated whatsoever. If they trade for 3 guys at the deadline, then maybe speculate that.
Yeah,
but yeah, but not here. So I'm actually fairly on the optimistic side here. I do like free. And I understand that spending the cap and a contract space. I'm telling you guys, that contract limit is going to matter. 47 is getting up there, and it's not just for the deadline. It's also if you want to sign any college guys, your own or free agents, you need to have room. So 47 is starting to get tight.
Yeah.
So there is an opportunity cost. It's cap. It's a contract spot, but like I said, they were going to need to bring in someone anyway. I like free. He's cheap. I think he does fit good. I like that he's like a net front guy. I think that's something the Avs have been missing, and they're getting some back with like Colton and Wood and changing the identity a little bit. So if he can do that and not be super slow, and I do like the other things about like the work ethic and it is interesting that McKinnon is having more and more of a voice in who to bring in. And to me, that's showing them that like they're trying to build this team for the playoffs. I don't think you need to burn a first-round pick on the guy that TSN has said's name the most to show
that
them
you want to win.
Yeah, that you are investing in this team winning the cup this year. So I think, this is a really good under-the-radar kind of fit that doesn't have a ton of downside except for just the opportunity cost if it could have been someone else. But hey, if he prevents them from making the Lars Eller trade, fantastic, even better.
Yeah, exactly.
But we'll see about that.
Well, and it's interesting that you mentioned the contracts thing, because we had Scott Wilson comment a couple minutes ago, how do we hold a spot for Cal Ritchie? He's doing very well in the OHL, and he's probably due for his contract pretty soon here. And that's a good point when you say the 47, that's a large number for contracts. So they're going to have to find a way. That's why I do hope, no pun intended, I do hope that they offhand some of these players that are on the fringes for the Avalanche, like Curtis McDermott, like Ryan Johansson. Honestly, just even if it's to free up a contract, and maybe in Johansson's case to get something back a little bit, but it's just going to be so hard. But I'd almost rather be in the Nashville club right now and pay to have him not play.
That's what it'll be.
Yeah.
He is somebody you have to pay somebody to take.
Yeah, exactly. So
and that's what Minnesota's doing right now. They're still paying Parise after buying out his contract.
I know.
What was the number? It was
like $7 million.
No,
I can see the Avs buying him out though. I think that they'll give a little something, especially to free up contract space. Like maybe somebody wants Ben Myers to take Ryan Johansson. That's probably not the right example. I'm sure they need somebody more than Ben Myers. But like you give away 2 players, create 2 roster spots, get Ryan Johansson off the roster. That might work. And also,
I would have thought that buyout was unrealistic because the Avs they don't have the cap to just have dead money like that until I saw that they would share even the buyout with Nashville.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it's only 1.3 million and Nashville get 1.3 million. I don't know why it's in the CBA. I don't know if you go on Cap Friendly and do the buyout, you see it that way. So at 1.3 million for a buy, I think that's
It's
doable.
not terrible.
That's a little
That's
more
not
acceptable. Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
Especially if you're thinking about Ross Colton as a guy who's giving you $5 million worth of value.
Might as well, and then bolster your center depth further down the
Yeah.
lineup.
And obviously McKinnon's giving you $20 million worth of value. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, McKinnon's producing for 2 right now.
that's
Oh.
right.
And then I think Nashville, I think they still have to pay the $4 million. So that really does stick it to them that
Yeah.
that you're giving them a 1.3 million cost that they didn't even agree to. But yeah, at that price, that might be better than having to send away a decent asset to get rid of him.
Yeah, so the contract was bought out on July 13th in 2021 by the Minnesota Wild, and the contract was signed by one Chuck Fletcher. And he is being paid in the 2023-24 season $7.5 million. And in the
Wow.
24-25 season, $7.5 million.
I think that's cap though. I think like actual money he's getting is not that.
No, but yeah, correct.
Yeah.
That's what they bought out. I don't know
Yeah.
what the cap hit is afterwards, but just unreal to think that. But they did the same thing. Who was the other? Weren't there a couple guys that they bought out in the same vein?
It was him and Suter.
Suter.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, the
That's
same,
right.
which is crazy. I guess like does Scott want me to talk about Richie?
If you want to, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, let's talk
I can
about
answer
Richie. I got thoughts too.
that question.
How do we
How
hold a
long do we-
spot? Yeah.
This is going to be a good one. I'm very interested to see how the Avs plan to handle Richie. He's not even signed yet. They could
Right.
sign him to an ELC anytime, but March 1st is usually, if you're a prospect watcher, is a big day because that's the first day that you can sign a contract that begins next year. So it wouldn't count on their, 47 or whatever. And so they sign a lot of, well, they used to, when they used to have prospects to sign, you'd see several in that month of March. So I think it would be a nice gesture of the Avs to sign him and say, hey, look, you've had a great year and you're obviously worthy of being signed. Let's do it. But sometimes they'll even make the poor guy wait like even another year, and that would be sad. So I just wanted to bring that up about signing him because I think that's relevant. Like if he's not even signed, he's not going to like win a job in camp. He doesn't have a contract. As much as I would like to think he'd be like a real option next year, he probably isn't. I'm really hoping though the following year. I don't want him to get stuck in the AHL. I'd be fine with him going back to the OHL, having another year, having a good World Juniors. He
The
should
Generals.
be a big player on that team. And then the Avs to really take a very nice proactive approach to possibly having him on the team then. That's my hope. Fingers are crossed. But as always, when the Avs are in control and they see a 3-year ELC, they could want him in the AHL for several years, and that would be extremely disappointing. So we'll see.
Or they could trade him tomorrow.
Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
The trade is still possible, but the way that they handle forwards in the AHL, it is like a scary idea that he might have to go there next year because
agreed.
he's going to get like third or fourth line minutes, and it's not going to be. It's so frustrating because
he wouldn't go. He's not allowed to go next year. It's either the OHL or the Avs.
Oh, good. Okay.
I mean, there is a precedent. Like they had Byram in the NHL at 19. They had Gerard, but it's probably really unrealistic to hope that the Avs are going to be that progressive. I just hope in one more year. Like if the OHL is just some place that he's just going to maybe a little underneath his level for a year, but it is what it is. But if that's like a path towards the Avs actually using him, that would be fabulous.
Yeah, he's got 47 points in 28 games for the Oshawa Generals in the OHL this season with 16 goals and 31 assists.
And look at that plus minus.
Plus 28 with 12 penalty minutes. This guy throw him or what?
No, not really. He did get in a quote unquote fight the other game.
Quote unquote.
It wasn't. He is a bigger guy. He's 6'2". I think that's also going to be what maybe he needs to work on between now and actually playing in the NHL is just bulk up. Because the injury did set him back at least as like upper body strength wise. But almost all of his production is at 5-on-5. He only has 11 power play points. Some of those in the OHL, especially the ones that play for like the London Knights, clean up on the power play. I've watched him quite a bit since he's been back. I really like him. I think he profiles exactly what they need as a 2C. Just everything about his game, his style, his size is exactly what they need. I just hope they don't screw it up.
So hopefully they bring him on in a way that promotes that potential. So I'm with you, Jackie, because if he could be the 2C of the future, it's high time the Avalanche find that in system.
That would
I
excite
hope
a
there's a
lot of
plan. I
fans.
hope there's already a plan. I hope it's like
Yeah.
written down in steps somewhere over there at Ball Arena. Like it needs to be written out.
Well, so as far as the question goes, then holding his spot, if we're targeting 2 years for when he first gets a chance at it, then you're looking at somebody on like a 3-year deal, whose place he could take, which kind of is Russ Colton in a way.
Yeah.
But the Avs don't really slot. Like they've never. I think the only like Makar and to an extent Byram, they got rid of Ian Cole, but they just don't slot like that. Like you just want good players. Like he's not going to be in the top 6. So
no, he'd have to come in the third.
Well,
exactly. If he could play on the third line,
Cogliano will probably retire. So there's one.
Yeah.
Parise might retire depending on if he wins, which hopefully he does. Kivi Ranta's contract will be up. Olafson's contract will be up. So I think that they'll find room when the time comes pretty easily. But I'm with you, Jackie. When the time comes, that might be now though, which the contracts like we talked about earlier, that is a little bit harder to settle this season than it will be 2 years from now. So we'll keep an eye on that. Scott, thank you so much for your participation today, Scott Wilson. We really appreciate you bringing.
Yeah, anytime I can talk about prospects, especially a good prospect.
Jackie's bread and butter.
Yeah,
that's right. Well, this is going to be the last segment of the show. As we always do, we are going to get our bold predictions out of.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
I call that bold talk.
It was good and bad. I'll say that. We had Ezra who said that Lehkonen and Johansson would combine for 4 points while on the ice together because Lekkonen's return would spur Johansson on.
It was a good hope.
I wish it would have.
I will say the line looked competitive having Lehkonen on it.
Exactly.
Cogliano can't finish, so it didn't happen. But
yeah.
I was going to say, did they even record a point?
No,
they did not. I didn't think so. Yeah,
they did not.
They had more chances
I thought Johansson got 1 assist.
No, I looked. I did the search, and they were 0.
I think,
but not together. Yeah.
And then we had Jacob, who's not with us today, who said that the second line would outscore the first line, and
immediately after that night,
the first line had 15 points in 2 games. So that's nuts. The second line did have 6 points in those 2 games, though. So that's not terrible.
Wonderful.
I mean, that's a point per game for each. So that's pretty darn good. And then, Evan, you said that the Avalanche would shut out the Capitals, which almost happened.
Close.
Totally
their
almost
foot off the gas. That was
just a smidge, and I'm glad they did because the Capitals were not there for the right reasons. Capitals were there to pass the puck to Ovechkin. Ovechkin was there to not score, apparently. And then I said that the Roaring 20s line would have a hat trick. Dang it. I was close.
So close.
I was so close. I wonder what sort of garments we would have saw on the ice had Logan O'Connor scored his 3rd goal and did hat trick in 3 straight games for the Colorado Avalanche for 2 different players. Would have been pretty crazy.
Hat tricks.
Yeah, so I think that's everyone. Did I do everyone? I did everyone. Okay.
You didn't get mine.
Oh, I didn't?
Oh,
because yours was right, Jackie. I saved yours for
Best for last.
Jackie said, we will be healthy at the break. I consider you correct because the disclaimer was only Val and Gabe out, right? That's what we said. And so, bang, we're good. Heading into the break, healthy. That's great news. And honestly, like Val, other than, what he's dealing with, is healthy. So that'll be good when he's done through the system. It's hopefully he can just be all full steam ahead. I'm sure he's still getting in his therapy and stuff like that physically. So that's good. And then if Landeskog does come back in playoff time, it is parade planning season. That's right. I said it. But let's get into this week's bold predictions. And Evan, let's just go with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously disappointing that there is no Avs hockey, at least for the next week or so. So this one will be a little All-Star themed.
Nice.
And I think it might be an easy answer, but it's never happened before. So I think it's a bold prediction that Nathan McKinnon's Central Division team will win the All-Star game, because I don't believe the
Yeah.
Central
Nice.
has won the All-Star game before.
No, they have not.
So we'll see. I mean, if all three of McKinnon, Makar, and Georgiev are on the same team, I don't think that's a bad bet at all.
Love it. I love it. And you know what? Let's hope that happens, because that was really fun last year when McKinnon and Rantanen and Makar were all out there together at once. That was really cool. So hopefully we can get sort of that same thing just with Georgiev and net, and the two skaters. So I like that one. I like that one a lot. Jackie, what do you got for me?
Okay. And to be clear, I don't know. I thought the everyone be healthy was maybe a little easy, but then again, when is this team ever healthy? So I think it's bold to say what is ever going to happen. But I'll make this one a little bit tougher.
Okay.
I'm going to say, so if we have a show next week, I probably won't be on it. So I'm talking the whole road trip, the 6 games.
Okay.
That Byram will score not 1 but 2 goals through the 6 games. The 6-game road trip. So that's my bold prediction that you can hold on to until after the fact.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so Byram will have at least 2 goals in that 6-game road trip that's coming up.
Yes.
Love it. Love it. And you know what? I don't know, man. Byram, everyone talks about trading Gerard, and that's a possibility. But I feel like him and Byram are kind of like on a level playing field in terms of that, potentially. If it's a thing, if they're trading a roster player, it's Ryan Johansson, hopefully, and maybe someone from that D group. But we'll get into that maybe in a different show, because I'm sure there's plenty to talk about there. Evan, go ahead with your bold prediction this week. Sorry.
Mean
Ezra, sorry.
Okay, well, I'll address Scott's question with my bold prediction. Scott's question is, who do you think does better between Nate and Kale in skills competition? My bold prediction is they both kind of tank it, so they don't have to do very much. They take it easy. I think that neither one of them is going to make the final round of it, because they don't care.
And this is a perfect time for me to plug. We have a roundtable coming up.
That's right.
And we have this exact question. So
and I gave that exact answer.
if you want to hear 4 other responses to this question,
yeah,
go to Mile High Hockey tomorrow and check it out.
That's right. I got to add my contribution now before the night's up, because that is hilarious. And I totally agree, because I feel like Nate, Makar, and Georgiev are there for dinners and and a little bit of fun times, maybe palling it up with some of the guys that they're typically competing against. And that's pretty much
$1 million bucks, though.
$1 million.
And they're very competitive people, so it'll be hard for them to really turn it off. But
someone said
Nate's already getting 13. He's fine.
I can't remember who it was, but one of the captains said if they win it, he'll give them each 100,000.
Now that was Byram saying that Makar was going to give everyone the defense 100,000. So I assume that means half, like for 5 of the guys.
And then Kale shut that down.
And then Kale was like, no. And so maybe it was like Byram more saying like, Kale said this. It does happen. It's like, well.
Let nudge him.
Hey.
I think it was just a little.
Yeah, Kale Makar said he was going to give me half of his contract if he won. So that's great. And there's Bo Byram with the funnies as usual. That guy. Well, those are some pretty good bold predictions. I'm going to keep mine All-Star themed as well. I'm going to say that I'm going to go the opposite route. I know I said that McKinnon and Makar are there for dinners, but I think McKinnon's there to put another nail in the coffin of him winning the Hart. And I think he might just go nuclear and play harder than everyone else just because he's Nathan McKinnon, and it might get a little awkward because of how much he's trying harder than everyone else. So my bold prediction is that he's the MVP, and whatever, it's 3v3. He's gonna have like 15 goals. It's gonna be I'll say 10. I'll say 10 though.
Hey,
in the All-Star game,
in the isn't it a tournament, right? It's a 3v3 tournament.
I think I assume so.
So 10 in the tournament. Okay.
10 in the tournament, yeah, exactly.
You know what? I actually can see that being a possibility because it is in Toronto. And
Exactly.
he's going to want to show off to all of the
Mhm.
East Coast reporters who don't stay up late and watch the West Coast games.
Yeah.
It's the same debate with Nikola Jokic and like all the other sports teams here in the West that argue about it. But
He might even pay McDavid to lose in the fastest skater. Like it's like that. Breaking news. Breaking news. Sports books everywhere are furious as Nathan McKinnon pays off Connor McDavid in the fastest skater competition.
Do guys making that much money get motivated by that?
Yeah, I was gonna-
Yes.
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
Millions
Like,
a million. Even
that's
if,
right.
if you already
Yeah,
have
yeah,
lots
yeah,
of millions, millions still a million.
yeah.
Jackie speaking from experience, obviously.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, that is it for today's edition of the Mile High Hockey Lab. Thank you to the three of you, Jackie, Evan, and Ezra, for joining me. My name is Adrian Hernandez. Scott, thank you so much for tuning in and for sharing your questions with us. And everyone else, thank you so much for joining the program. If you enjoy what you've listened to today, please like, subscribe, share, and send to your fellow Colorado Avalanche fans.
Thank you for
Here we
tuning
are.
into the Mile High Hockey Lab.
All-Star weekend. Let's have some fun. Adios.